Good morning. Welcome to Our Lives, Our Future. I'm Sandra Scheller, and I'm here with somebody that I have been trying to interview for over a year. And thank God I get to finally get this interview done. I'm with Mike and Manya Wallenfels. It's so wonderful to see you here.
Thank you.
I know you have an incredible story. I just want you to know you're a hero of mine, both of you.
Thank you very
Because of what you do, you are the
I am the
you
vice
are the
much.
vice
I'm the secretary.
you are the secretary and you're the vice president. The things you do for the New Life Club are really amazing. And what I noticed, Manya, is that when you give your talks, you have a way of waking up the school bell louder than I have ever heard anybody wake up a bell. So with that, we'll get started. I'm going to go over to the other side. I'll ask a few questions, and I know you have a story to tell me. Manya, my first question. How far back can you remember?
It looks like, unbelievably, that 4 or 5 years old. And the reason is that when something horrible happens to you, I guess you never forget this. It's embedded in your mind and it repeats constantly. Since the Holocaust happened, I go through many dreams. I am reliving the past. I wish it wouldn't happen, but you just can't be separated from what happened and what is now.
When were you born?
I was born in 1936 in December.
What was your maiden name?
Steiner.
So it was Manya.
Manya
Yes.
Steiner, and then they made a mistake and it became Stauner, and because we didn't really have any official papers when I was born, or because everything was destroyed during the Holocaust time.
You were born in what city?
In Busk, that is in Poland. It is
It's actually in Ukraine now.
Yeah, today it is Ukraine, and it was a very Jewish populated, smaller city. A few thousand Jews lived there, and I have to mention, unfortunately, we were the only family from a couple thousand people who survived as two parents, mom and dad, and my sister. We were 3 sisters. One died already in the ghetto, and my middle sister survived.
If I went to your house on Shabbos, what would it be like?
Oh, I remember on Shabbos, as we know, in Poland, the Jewish people usually were all Orthodox, and the language was Yiddish, the first language. The second was Polish. On Shabbos we went to the temple, you were dressed up, and then you come home, you have a good dinner, a Shabbos dinner, challah, fish, all those goodies. And that's how I grew up. I was raised under that guidance from my parents. We were a big family, and we had many uncle, aunts, cousin. They lived in different cities in Poland, but we were only the ones who survived.
So 1936,
Yes.
1937, 1938, 1939. What do you remember?
I mean, that time I was really as a small child. I remembered from when I was about 4, 5, from there on.
So that would be 1940, 1941.
41, that is correct. And those were the most horrible things what had happened from 39 to actually 45.
Manya, tell me what happened.
Okay, the war broke out in 39. The Russians came in first to that part of Poland, and later on they were chased out by the German regime, and in Germany then attacked Poland in 1941. That when they came in. From that time on, life was very, very difficult. The first thing was when they came in the early time, that they marched out the people from the city, and everybody had to leave the home, and it was a ring, what they call it, and over there the people were in line, children, women, men, and elderly. And that when this whole thing started, we did not know, or we didn't expect it, such atrocity what had happened. So we were like sheeps going to the death camp. And at that time, I know that they told my father he is staying on the right side, and they told him to stay there, and then they took him away. They separated the people. On the end was that my mom and my two sisters, we were staying in one side. My grandfather, who was in the late 80s, 90s, he could not walk. They took him away and they murdered him right there on the spot. When they took away my dad, we had no knowledge where they took him, and then we stayed. I have to go back. When that happened, is my grandfather told my dad, try to save your life, and somehow he got away with us. And my father, then we were hiding in the forest for a few days until the first attack episode what had happened, and that happened to be on Yom Kippur, when people were ready to go to the temple, dressed up, celebrating the new year with better hope, but it turned around. That's what it was. The death camp was waiting for us. So we escaped, and we stayed in hiding for a couple days. When it calmed down, we went back to Busk, and a lot of people were already killed, taken away, and now my father had to be in hiding because of his age. They actually put him in the row where they will take him away to labor camp. But on the end, they were coming and going. The Germans were searching all the time, so they found my dad and they took him away to a labor camp. From that time on, we did not know if he is alive or he is in a labor camp or where. Now, in a very short time after the Yom Kippur attack, they made a ghetto, and they chased us out from our home, and we were in the ghetto. And the ghetto was my mom, I was, and my two sisters, and many other elderly people, mainly women and children.
What were the ages of yourself and your two sisters?
That time I was about 5 years old. I was the youngest one. My first sister, Tobe Rochel, she was about 3 or 4 years younger, older than I, and then Yutka, my other sister, and me. My sister, the conditions in the ghetto was absolutely unbearable. We were surrounded with wires. We couldn't go out. We children had absolutely no opportunity to go to school, and we were rolling around on the streets, and sometimes they used us in the kitchen to do things, helping out. After that, we were in the ghetto about a year and a half, and we found out later I used to sneak out from the ghetto. I was like a tomboy. I had to help out, and I sneaked out from the ghetto and went to the market, and over there what the peasants left from the market food, rotten things or something, what you discard, I took it back, and that was a supplement. And many times I did this. My parents had a little store before the war, so a lot of villagers they knew us, and when I was sneaking out, they said that your dad is with the partisans fighting, that is the Jewish resistant soldiers with the Polish together. They were fighting against the Nazis, but with little accomplishment. What can be it's like a fly against an elephant. That was about the ratio between the resistant and the Nazis. And we were in the ghetto a year and a half, and then finally, as the Hitler regime wanted to, their main goal was to distinct all the Jewish people practically from the face of the earth, and now it was the turn for our city to be again free of, they called it Judenfrei, Jewish cities free of Jews. And that time they again attacked the city, and they started to scream. They came with dogs. This was in the ghetto when it happened. They came with dogs and started to shoot and screaming, Juden, Juden, gehen Sie raus. That means Jews, get out. And when we were in the ghetto, I remember it was a corner house, and over there there was an attic. It was with a ladder that you could go up, and when we heard that noise and the screaming, we knew that terrible things will happen, because other cities were also what they called the Judenfrei, exterminate the people, take them to the concentration camp. Those people, a lot of them jumped the trains, and then they were looking where to go, so that when they came to our city, those were the people who brought the news, what happened in their cities. So that's all what we knew that something like this similar will happen. So when that happened, we were in that tiny little house. We were a lot of, maybe 20 people were staying together. We were sleeping on the floor like herrings are packed in the little
sardines,
in the little can. And that's how we were living under those conditions in the ghetto. And when we heard that noise and shooting, we went up on the attic, because that was a plan. If something happens, then there was no place where to go. So we thought, the attic will save your life. But on the end, that's what had happened. We went up to the attic, and a few people, some of them went out because they thought maybe it's a better place. And the ladder was pulled up, and we are there in the attic, staying a couple days, maybe 2 or 3 days, because this was going on. It was burning, the homes were burning, and we couldn't leave anywhere. But then maybe the second day or the third day, my mom decided that, and it was a God's miracle that they were actually shooting, when they came in, we could hear the shooting in the house and screaming, Juden, Juden, gehen Sie raus, gehen Sie raus. And we had to be so quiet. If God forbid somebody would cough or anything, then, they would find us right away. And after it quieted down, my mom decided that we have to go down and we have to go somewhere. The only thing what we knew, when I used to go out to the market, and that they knew me as a child, and when they mentioned my dad is in the village, but where is he or what, that one we did not know. So my mom was brave, and at night all those movements happened at night. So we headed to the village, and when we arrived to the village and we were hiding there, we went into a stable and hiding during the day, because otherwise they would find us. And also the peasants who were, the villagers who were living, their life was also in great danger. Anybody who tried to save a Jewish person was punished. They killed him or they burned down the whole village. Also it happened in many places. That's how dangerous it was for anybody to try to help, even if the person had a good heart and was a righteous person. But some of them, yes, they risked their life, to help out.
Why do you think they risked their life for you and your family?
Because the similar things happened to those people too, so they knew what it is, and from the goodness of their heart, they tried to help.
Manya, you didn't know from one day to the next where you were going to sleep, what you were going to eat, what you were going to wear, where your head was going to go down.
No, that is correct. When we escaped from the ghetto, and when we were hiding, that was on the end of the Judenfrei period, that the only thing what we had was the clothing what we escaped. Nothing else we could carry with us, and that's how we lived, with the same clothing and until we were freed. So it was like a year and a half. That was just the ghetto time. And when we found my dad, and then we reunited, and then it came another episode, because the Germans knew where to find the people, and it was in the summertime. So my dad was a soldier in World War I, so he was experienced. My dad thought that the best thing to save us was to go in hiding in the weeds, because it was summertime, and the reason was that the Germans went into the forest first, and it was much easier to catch the people and shoot them. So in the weeds they couldn't get in. It wasn't as safe as hiding in the weeds comparing to the forest. And we were there until the weeds were cut down. It was sunny, it was burning, it was hot, we had nothing what to eat. At night my dad used to go out to the village. As I mentioned before, that we were knowing, and we knew a lot of people who were living in the village, and they knew already from the partisan movement that my dad, they used to give him some food, bread, or whatever they had, and then he brought it back in where we were hiding. That happened till the end of the summer, and then we had to have another plan. In the meantime, it quieted down because the most people they caught hiding, and they murdered them. And so my dad decided again that the best place to save us is to go into the forest. And being in the partisan group, he knew where are little small bunkers, and we were hiding in those bunkers there through the whole winter while it happened. And my dad, again, he was the only one who provided us. He went out at night, and that's how he got some food. Some people were not too good, but at least they did not turn us in to the Germans, because they rewarded those people who helped to catch the Jewish people. So it was very, very enticing, to get something.
Sure, on one hand you would want to get somebody Jewish and turn them in.
That's right, and you get a reward for it, for the person who turned in a Jew. So in the forest we were hiding 18 months in different places. The first time we were almost caught. We were hiding in a young sort of village where small trees were, and that was easier for the Germans. They used to come with dogs and try to sniffle out if movements or anything. And I use many times in my life, I always say miracles happened to us. The reason whenever we were confronted with death, somehow God helped us, and it was like angels were around you and covering you up, and that's how we really lived 18 months in all the hidings. Many of those things happened. Then he was confronted by a Nazi, and they said, Juden, my dad did not look like a Jew with a beard, or so he looked more like, the Polish people, and that saved us a lot. Another time, we were in another forest, because once when they found us, they only my dad, because we were constantly in the bunker sitting during the day. At night we got out so you could straighten out. And so one day my dad was out from the bunker, and he was confronted by a German, and we could hear every word what they are talking. And my dad showed the animals that he said, I am a Polak, and those are my animals. And then they let him go, and we started to cry. And I remember my mom put something in my mouth that if I would cry louder, they would have heard us, and then we would have been dead. And that was, again, we were very religious, and we believed in God, and this is again a miracle, that we lived through that episode. And then when winter came in, we had to move out, and we went to another smaller forest where it was a lot of bunkers, because that's where the resistance group was fighting. And we were there, and then we were again caught by German only my dad, and again with luck and miracle they let him go. Then we had to, another episode I remember, that somebody knew that we are hiding in a place, and they came, it was the Polish people, and they told them that it was, they reported it to the police, and they will probably come and kill you. And my dad, we have to move constantly. We were moving from one place to another, so we went away from that place, and sure enough, they came, the German soldiers, and they threw a grenade in the bunker, and they blew up the bunker, but we were not there anymore, because if that person would not come and tell my dad, we would have been killed. And that happened, that the same episode we had was, we were hiding in a place, and my dad had, the villagers knew that a few people are hiding in the village, and so you had to be very, very careful, where they are reporting and to whom they are reporting. So somebody came very close to the little bunker, and they knew right away that somebody is hiding, and one guy said, mentioned my dad's name, so he knew that somebody, and he recognized the voice. It was somebody who came and told them, get away from here, because you are reported and they will come. So this was again God's miracle that this episode happened. We went to another place. We were hiding in a cemetery, because my dad thought that the cemetery will be safe, and sure enough, no matter where you go, there was no safe place for anybody. And over there too, it was already in the winter time, and the footsteps you could see. So somebody went to the cemetery to probably visit their dead relatives, and somebody called my dad's name. So we knew that somebody is around us, but we didn't know if it was the German police or the Polish. But again, when they called my dad, my mom's name, so my dad crawled out from the little place, and they again said, the Nazis will come, get away, and that was the Polish people. So that's what had happened in all those months during the year. So not even the cemetery place could save us. Then in the meantime, time is passing, winter time, long time, and a lot of noises going around. So we had to move away to another place, and we were hiding in a swamp, just on the wet ground, sleeping like this. We had nothing what to eat, and again the situation got very bad, because my parents, when you are constantly in hunger and malnourished, you don't have what to eat, they became sort of the ice at night. They call it ślepe kura in Polish. I can't even translate the word.
Vision.
It's something, it has to do with the eyes that he did not see anymore. The vision became very blurred, and over there we were a few months on the swamp, where leashes were crawling over you, and I remember that my parents had to to pull away the leash, because when once they get on your skin, they suck your blood, and they only fall down when they had enough blood from your body. And that how we stayed. That was the last hiding place of us. It was going on time and time, and we were chewing on grass, on bark, because we had nothing what to eat. And then one day we heard a lot of shooting. Aeroplanes were flying real low, and it was in already, a long time in the war, that it was toward the end. And my dad decided during the day he went out, because he knew that something is not ordinary, and he walked out, and they told him that the Russians came in. And that was a miracle that, we even survived for that long. So when he came back with the Russian soldiers, and they took us out from the swamp. And they took us into a hospital. No, they took us into the hospital because my mom could hardly stay on her feet. And as I mentioned, my dad was also very fragile. And my sister and I, we were younger, so we could still get on our feet. So they took us to the hospital in Busk. And when they took us in, it was, my sister got sick within a very short time, and there was no medicine to help her. And the Russian, one of the generals, happened to be Jewish, and he flew to Moscow to try to bring medicine, but my sister died in the meantime within a day or two. So now I am only with my mom and dad, and they were very, very sick also, but they all survived, but not for too long. When they took us back to the city, everything was ransomed. Our house was completely torn apart. Whatever we had, everything was gone. And from there on, we tried to, as I mentioned before, that we were the only family who survived, and they were single people and who survived also, and maybe 20 or some people or 30 people survived from the whole city. So again, it was not safe to stay in the city where I was born in Busk, so we tried to go in to a bigger place in Poland, not far from Busk. It was close to the German border. The city name was Betum, and over there by that time I was 9 years old when I went first to school, because the Jewish kids had absolutely no education. We could not go to school, and my mom got weaker and weaker, and my mom passed away in 1947 in Poland. And my dad knew that he had 2 sisters living in Hungary, but we had no knowledge if they are alive or anything. And through the Red Cross, my dad found out that they are alive. So we tried. So my mom died in Bitum, and she was buried there. And we tried to get out from Bitum and try to go to even another place. At that time, it was very, very difficult, the situation, and even in Poland we were freed already, but anti-Semitism was very, very strong. I remember when I went to school and we went for a trip with the kids, and I was the only Jewish kid in the class, and they called me dirty Jew and spitting on me, and the teacher completely ignored. And I remember it was like a little lake, and the kids tried to attack me and kill me. This killing was always in your head, and fear what I did see. And I ran away, and the teacher did not stop the kids from attacking me. And when I ran home, I was crying and told my dad what happened. So from there on, I didn't even go anymore to the Polish school, and we tried to get away from Poland when he found out that his sisters are living. And at that time we tried to, the Jewish Federation in Bitum gave us some papers that we are French citizens. That's how we could get out from Poland. And we went to Hungary, and in Hungary we were very happy, to get together with my dad's sisters, and from there on my life changed, because I had, my aunts were to me like my mom, and they took care. And I went to school in Hungary. I had to learn the language, and but things were still very, very difficult. We were occupied by the Russian government, and in 1947, 48, it broke out, the revolution in Hungary.
No, 57.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I lived in Hungary for 8 years, and then we were...
How did you learn the language?
It was very difficult. Hungarian is a hard, tough language.
She's still learning it.
But I learned, and I was so much behind the school that I had to jump. So I'm arriving to Hungary, not speaking the language, and they put me in 5th grade. It was very difficult, and I was, feeling uncomfortable. They are all speaking Hungarian, and I can't speak. But I tried my very best in school, and I'm going. It was, like I said, when I went to Hungary, my life changed. And I remember my aunt said to me, if I will pass the grade, and then I will be rewarded with a bicycle, because that was my dream, to have a bicycle, because I never had anything as a normal a kid would have. And thank you.
Open it up.
Can I open it? Oh my gosh.
Little bicycle.
Here is,
Oh, that's very nice.
I want you to always have a bicycle.
Oh, that.
this is a dream for me to have a bicycle. Thank you so much for this wonderful gift.
Can I see it?
It is so thoughtful, you know, because you heard my story.
Well, you're giving our students such an important lesson, Manya. This is the least I can do.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. And every day when I went to school, that bicycle store was very close to the place where I lived in Budapest. And finally, you know, I passed the 5th grade and I got the bike. It was like such a gift, such a reward that I was cleaning with my hanky the bike every day. That's how I cherished this present from my family. Thank you,
Very
thank
nice.
you.
Manya, I wanted to ask you, so you wear the same clothes every day, over and over.
That
You didn't take a bath, have no idea where you go to the bathroom. Do students ask you these things? Do they ask you in detail? Because for us, we're almost afraid to ask a question like that. And yet, if you're able to tell us what was your personal hygiene like, what did you do to stop from getting sick, or the fact that your hands were dirty, or what did you do to constantly stay clean?
I mean, if it was winter, then we were cleaning your face and hands with snow, and
How did you stay warm?
we had the rags on. We escaped with the clothing from the ghetto, and that's all what we had. And other clothing like was when some peasant gave you a blanket or something like that, or if they didn't give him, and my dad used to go to the stable inn and bring the food what they were giving to animals, you know, and if he did see a rag hanging, you know, in the stable, he had to take it, because we had no shoes. We had the shoes that were already used old ones, and we used to tie it around your leg, and that's how we were living.
Do you
we
remember?
didn't even take it off. You were sleeping when we were in the bunker. It was a little hay and the ground, and that's it. And you are talking about hygiene. My sister, the toy was for us that we were full of lice, and we were playing a game, you know, who can take out more lice from your hair. That was the game between my sister and me. So I
heard an interesting story. So when somebody tried to clean you, tell me what happened.
Yes, the first time when we were freed, I didn't let they had to tear off, and I was screaming because I wouldn't let them to take off the clothing. It was like it was glued down to me, and that was my safe blanket. But then it took a time till, you know, you lost the horrible fear what you had, and we become a new human beings but with time.
Trust takes a long time, doesn't it?
Yes, it's and that's why all those memories stay with me constantly. I am dreaming it's already past 70 years, but things stay with you. As bad things will never disappear from your mind.
Your story is amazing, Manya. You really are one of the strongest people I know, because you continue to tell your story, and it's important, and the documenting is this is exactly what we need. I'm so amazed. You're sitting next to a very wonderful man. Would you like to introduce him?
This is my husband, Mike. I call him Mickey.
Mickey?
And I met Mickey in Hungary because after my mom passed away, we went to Hungary, and that's where we met. And since I had to learn a new language and was way behind schooling, he was my helper, my tutor, to help me.
How did you meet?
He was living just a street away,
half a block away.
And that time I was going to high school. He was already going to college, and he had to take the same streetcar to go to school, and I also had the same route to go to my school, and he was the one who helped me. And I was also athletic, a fast runner. I played ping pong and table tennis, and he belonged to a club where he played, and that's how we met in Hungary. And he was dating me, and we lived under the communist regime, and the revolution broke out in '56 in Hungary, and again everything was just the same fear that we survived the war, and here is another war, and how do we survive? We had to I lived in Budapest. We had to go down to the basement. It was
a bunker.
It
was just like in the Second World War.
And we were hiding there for a couple days, again shooting and bombarding, and so then it quieted down a little bit, and my father was really fearing for my life rather than his. And when it quieted down, a lot of people left Hungary, and a group of young students, we decided that we have to do something, and I knew that I have relatives in United States. That's all what I knew them from a picture, and so we tried, when it quieted down, we tried to leave Hungary, but we lived far away. I lived in Budapest, and we had to go to the border, where it wasn't safe either, because the Hungarian police and the Russian soldiers stopped the trains, and they took off the people, and they took him away, deported them to Russia or where. And we somehow, I don't know, it's like somebody was guiding my life. We decided that we are not going all the way to the border, because over there they would snap you right away. So we got off one station before the border, and we didn't know where to go, and at that time you couldn't even travel from one city to the other, so it was very difficult, and we only relied on the people whom we met at the border or before, where to go, how to reach the border. And those people told us, go straight, and then you will have to go a few kilometers and to make it to Austria, because that was the place where the majority of the people, when the revolution broke out, 180,000 people left Hungary, and that was the cream of the cream. It was mainly young people, and I had to, my dad and my aunt encouraged me to go, to live for a better life. And I had to, it was very, very difficult to leave them, because we didn't know if we will even make it. And but luckily we got to the border, and again we needed help from the
local guys.
For the local people. You had to they were the first thing they were asking for money, so if you had a ring or something, you give them away, because we were not prepared for anything like that. And my dad sewed in, I didn't know my aunt's address and uncle from United States, so he sewed it in my coat in case they would find us, they would kill us right away, that we are spies, because it was a Brooklyn, New York, United States address. So I was very careful, that nothing happened to my hidden address. But when we had to cross, when we arrived to the border, it was in the winter time, and we had to cross a creek in December, and up to, really depends, if you are taller, you were lucky. So I pulled my coat up, and I was holding it higher, that that the address should not get wet. And in the meantime, the rockets they were shooting at us, the Russians.
They were looking for people.
And they were looking, because they know that people
this was
are
at night.
At night, and somehow we had to. There was a road. We sort of got to the road, and right away the tanks were coming, and we had to lay down on the ground till they pass away the convoy, and that how we got it. And the person who helped us to get the closest to the border said, just continue, going. And on the other side was Austria, and the Red Cross was waiting for the refugees, because that was going on for a few days. And when they took us in, we were all soaking wet, and it was a school, and we only had the clothing what we had on our body, nothing else. And we had some...
Went down to our underpants.
Yes, and
take everything off to dry.
And they were, we were all sitting in a couple rooms and trying to dry up, but you couldn't stay there, because Austria is also a small country, and so many people, like 180,000 every days, by the thousands, people were crossing. So they had to clear for the next group, and we got out. They took us on a truck, and a little, I don't know how many kilometers away from the border, and that was another some school there, and they put us in there, and we stayed there for a day or two, and they tried to help the Red Cross, the Joint, the Caritas, different highest, and so every religious group were really the first one to help the people. So we found the Jewish Federation, it's called
there,
in Europe.
Excuse me. From there, they said that we can go only to Italy,
No,
England.
first, when we were there at the second place already for help, and it was the Jewish, the highest, ask the people, where do you want to go? But the first thing is what we made in to Vienna. We left that first place where they let us stay there a day or two, but
because they were very limited places they would let us go. They said that we can go to England, we can go to maybe Denmark,
and we wanted
Italy. We wanted to come
get
to the
away
States.
from Europe, what we went through, and all the time this was like repeating. So that's all was United States, America.
The only way we could do it is if we leave the place.
So we left
checked out from the
camp, the camp,
and we turned our way to Vienna.
We got to the road, to the highway, and we hitchhiked to Vienna. We arrived in Vienna. It was in the evening, I remember, snowing. We were hungry. We didn't know where to go, what to do. Finally, we did see a store, a grocery store, and the Austrians were very nice. They did see we are refugees.
But they could see my grey line, which was the line where the water ended and dry.
And they gave us some bread, hard rolls, and I remember a banana, and his best friend came with us, three of us, and we didn't eat a banana, we didn't ever, and my friend bit in the banana with the skin together, because we didn't know that you have to peel it. And now we are on the streets in Vienna. The police found us and they took us to a police station, and because it was cold we were soaking wet again, and we stayed at the station there for the whole night, and in the morning they told us where to go, because in Vienna, the capital city, over there is the American embassy, and that was the dream. America, the word by itself meant for us so much, that America, and so after the police station we got up the following day and we go to the American embassy, and the American, six blocks of people. I don't know how many thousands of people are in line.
No chance to get in there.
To get in.
But a miracle.
But again, another miracle happened. I could speak a little. I mean, I met this gentleman. He was in Vienna, and we grew up under the harsh condition, communism, where you don't believe anybody, you don't have any trust with anybody. So this gentleman, he happened to be from Poland, and he said that you have no chance in Vienna to get to the embassy. The best way that we will help you is you will go to Salzburg, and from over there you will have a better chance. Now, how do you believe him? And he said to me, I remember, he looked in my eyes and he said, I see you do not trust me. And I didn't know what to say. I said, I'm just afraid. And he said, you come here the next day, and there will be a bus, and that bus will take you to Salzburg.
Yeah.
And what choice did we have? We were sleeping in a...
One day we were sleeping in a house of prostitution.
That's where they took us. I mean,
no, not took us, but we ended
that's where
up.
they ended up because they directed us that somebody
you know,
will
I
let
mean,
you
there was
be
there was
under
a bed.
a roof.
There was a
And-
bed, and also this gentleman was from the Hias.
Highest,
Highest,
or we call
because when we went there for help, and they were closed because they were overran by people who came ahead of us.
So we came to the place, and the bus was there and he was there, and we couldn't believe it, that again we are like a human being. A beautiful bus
It's a
was,
sport bus.
and right away when it was filled up with people, we drove away and we stopped, and they were giving us food for at least it was almost 2 weeks that we were wandering. We were the wandering Jews from one place to another, and then they said that tomorrow somebody will come, they will help you to fill out some papers
To register.
and register, and we again had only the clothing what we escaped, and they gave us a coupon where to go to the store, and we can pick for some clothing that we have something to wear. And they put us in a hotel. It was like heaven, that now we have a bed in a warm place where to stay. It came the following day. I didn't know how long, we will stay there. So I decided, I'm staying in New York, and he will, because there was no room, to staying in my aunt's house. They were not rich people where they have mansions, so it was an apartment, so he had to go to Buffalo. Somewhere, and
Shuffle off to Buffalo.
everybody was happy that they put you somewhere that you have a place.
Okay.
So when I remember it was on Christmas time when it happened, and New Year's, and my cousin, my aunt had 2 growing children already. One was married, the other one was single. He took me to New Year's night to go into New York. New Year's Eve. It was something like just in a movie. You can imagine that I am thousands and thousands of miles away from the home, from my father, from my aunt, and I am here in New York. But I had like a little supporting, like a little pillow, my cousin, and that he showed me around, and to see all the people, and that was another beautiful, wonderful experience. Now I am a person that I don't like to accept from anybody, or I am a beggar. And what I did, I went in Hungary to a technical high school where I was in the clothing industry, and we had to study for 4 years the whole phase of clothing manufacturing, marketing, designing, and everything. So I tried to get a job, and right away after New Year's they wrote me down on a piece of paper where is the unemployment place, and not speaking the language. I am in a city where it was equal with Hungary, 10 million people, and what do I do? So they were elderly, my aunt and uncle, so I couldn't ask, do this for me or do that for me. They just wrote me down on a piece of paper, and I speak Yiddish. That's what it saved me. So I was in the
Luckily, New York
perfect
has a lot
and the perfect place. Now, how do I go? And I only trusted when I did see a person with a beard, so I figured, you know, he must be Jewish. And then the first thing to reassure me, yes, that he was, I said, entschuldigen Sie mir, kannst reden Yiddish? When
Excuse
he said,
me,
yeah,
can you understand?
I read Yiddish, because that was my first language, Yiddish. So, and that how I was, like I had a cushion, and he says, oh, I'm going the same direction. I will let you know where to get out.
Nice.
So that's what would happen. And I made it to the unemployment office, and they gave me addresses where to go to the clothing industry for the job. I go there and no English. Then I was trying in Polish. Do you speak Polish? Oh, ja rozmawiam trochę. You know, thanks God, at least, you know, I can speak a little bit in Polish. So I got a job in a clothing industry, and that time I was very, very happy, because I got $1 an hour was my salary. I made $37.50 a week, and I wrote down I wanted to buy my own things, not accepting. So from the $37, I wrote down what now I'm buying a pair of shoes. Now I will buy socks. I need a sweater. And that's how because I did not want it to accept, you know, and they were very kind. I stayed in New York for maybe 2 or 3 months, and he was in Buffalo with another group of Hungarian refugees, and there was a family, only the father was with 2 girls, and he went to if you want, yeah, you can tell the rabbi's story.
No, so I found out that the rabbi was Hungarian, Rabbi Isaac Klein. He was he came from Hungary as a young child, but then he studied here, and he became he became the head of the conservative movement. And but when I went to see him, I told him that I have my girlfriend in Hungary and we were planning to get married. And he said...
My girlfriend in New York.
Well,
said
from Hungary.
From Hungary.
Yeah, from Hungary. And he said, why doesn't she come down to Buffalo, and we will sponsor you to get married. And so this was, we arrived in December of 56, and this was in January, February of 57. So Manya came down, and they arranged for our wedding on St. Patrick's Day.
Excuse me, I came down, you have to tell him, I was put not where he was.
Of course.
He was in a Jewish family. I was put with the father who has the 2 girls. So we were living at somebody's house to a elderly lady, and then he took me to the rabbi, and they were very, very helpful, extremely helpful.
Extremely helpful.
Unbelievable. They invited 300 people they made the wedding. The Council of Jewish Women, they were the sponsors. They invited 300 people to the wedding.
We had some relatives. You had
and my aunt and uncle and cousin, they came for the wedding. That was That
In
was
Buffalo.
In Buffalo.
And it was
That-
on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, my
And
God.
it was also a
March
Purim
17.
day. Purim.
Sunday,
So-
obviously. And they
uh,
had an orchestra which was one of the most famous
in Buffalo.
orchestra. Dave Cheskin dance band was playing.
How old were you the day you got married?
I was 20 and he was 22.
Mike, I have a Miklos.
Yes.
My favorite Miklos. I
Thank
have a
you.
question. So, Manya comes to Hungary. You're on a train or a trolley or a thing, and you see Manya. What was that like?
Well, actually, we met before the train,
Okay.
because we were neighbors practically, and our family knew Manya. Manya knew our family, so it was.
Maybe your grandmother.
Yeah, my grandmother. I will get to that story, but it was fun. We spent a lot of time together.
But Miklos, you came from also a very hard time. You were born in 34,
34, yes.
and your life was not easy because of the Holocaust and what you went through. So can you bring me up to speed a little bit as to what happened?
Well, Hungary was different. The Hungarian Jewish experience was different from the experience of Manya, because everything started much later. In Hungary, up till 1944 was bad, but nothing like what Manya experienced. Hungary was aligned with Germany after 1933, after Hitler came into power, but the situation for Hungarian families were not as bad, although Hungary had created some bad laws for Jewish people, but again, nothing like what Manya experienced for such a long time. For example, the Hungarian laws required young men to be drafted in the Hungarian army, and my father, when his term came, was drafted, but by that time he was placed in a Jewish group, in a labor group. And this happened in 1942, 43, and he was in this camp working. I mean, what they did was they were doing all the heavy work for the army. And his brother was in this group also. He had occasional vacations. They let him come home. Basically, we hardly seen him after that, and he in the camp got sick, contracted typhus, and he and his two brothers passed away in the camp, and they were buried in a mass cemetery. So I lost my father in 1944. Now, to talk about the situation in Hungary, as I said earlier, really didn't get very bad until March of 44, when the Germans came into Hungary and occupied Hungary. At that time, we had to start wearing the yellow stars, and we were forced to live in Jewish houses which were designated to be only for Jews. It happened that our house where we lived was designated to be a Jewish house. We didn't have to move, but other people moved in there. This was a 5-story building with 20 apartments. My sister, my mother, and our grandmother lived with us, because my father was in the labor camp, and we lived there. Now Eichmann came to Budapest in April of 1944, and his job was to execute the elimination of the Jews. He was in charge of organizing and executing the plan, which meant initially they were taking all the Jewish people into ghettos, and then from the ghettos they would send them to concentration camps. Now in Budapest, this didn't happen till October of 44. So here, compared to Manya's story, it's only a few months we are talking about. But during this time, as I said, many people were sent to concentration camps. Now we lived in this apartment house, and one morning the Hungarian Nazis came to the house, and they directed, again, everybody was Jewish, they directed everybody to go to the center of the building. There was an open area, and there's a lot of similarities to Manya's story. We were segregated. We were told to go the younger people and the older people to one section, and the 10 to 60-year-olds in another section. Turned out I was 10 years old at that time, so I was with my mother. They told us to go back to our apartment and get some heavier clothes and come back. Now when we went up to the apartment, my mother told me to go to the attic. So here is the story of the attic. And don't come back until they left. And so I listened to her. I went up to the attic and didn't come back until they left. So my mother was taken to the railroad station, and from the railroad station was taken to a concentration camp in Ravensbrück and Buchenwald. She was in both of those places, Ravensbrück and Buchenwald, and she was there until she was freed by the American army.
Was she freed in Ravensbrück or Buchenwald?
I think it was Buchenwald.
Okay.
Buchenwald. And she was there for a short time after, and she came back to Hungary in April of 45.
Wow.
And she was not too well, was very weak, and she actually died soon after that. So in the meantime, when she was taken, my grandmother and my sister were still in that building, which was strictly for Jewish people, but then the ghetto was organized in November, and we were taken into the ghetto. So my grandmother and my sister and I were actually taken into a place which was strictly for kids. My sister is 2 years younger than me, and it turned out that our aunt was one of the nurses in this place, and so she looked after us. But we were there until the Russians came in January, late January of 45, and freed us. At that time we moved back to our grandmother's place, and I lived with her after my mother died until 56 when we left from Hungary. Now after the war, went back to school, went to high school, I went to technical high school and then engineering school, and I graduated in 56 actually when the revolution broke out. That was my last semester, and got my degree in mechanical engineering. And came the revolution, and we decided to leave Hungary together. A friend of mine joined us, and you heard part of the story.
Sure,
And
of course.
so,
Can I ask you, do you reflect on any of your past? Do you have nightmares, or will something happen where you think about your mom, your father? What triggers your memory?
anniversary of their dates when they passed away, but I don't. Maybe I'm lucky. I don't have nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
Again, maybe it's because of the shortness of the exposure to these conditions,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I'm less sensitive. I don't know, but somehow I don't have any.
Mike, what do you want to see for the next generations that are talking about the Holocaust? When it comes to Holocaust education, what do we need to be reminded to continue teaching?
It's a tough question. I would say the second generation should continue with the memory of us. By that time, we're gonna be gone, and see if they could fight all the ongoing injustices.
Mm-hmm.
And try to make sure that it's not going to happen again.
One of the things that you taught me was to never be a bystander. I will never allow somebody to say something and ignore. And if something isn't right, I'm going to fight for that dignity. And I got that from you and from Manya.
That's very nice.
The other thing that I learned from you and Manya was to teach with kindness, to always do it very gently. I always want to remember to answer as many questions as I can. That if a question comes up, not just to let it go unanswered, but I will continue my research in the name of Mike and Manya Wallenfels, because that's important to me.
Really appreciate that.
What I found during when we are giving the talks that let's say the kids were repeating at dinner time and talking with their parents, and to hear from a student or a growing up person that what they heard from us and what had happened and what we went through, that their life changed completely, their thinking forever,
Mm-hmm.
that it will stay with them, and what did they hear and what to do to help out, but to somebody's life change. This one is very interesting, and what I want to bring up, I went for the March of the Living 3 times. The first time both of us went, and it was a very eye-opening experience that is mainly for Jewish young high school kids, but also non-Jews are attending. And what I learned on the trip that those kids became like a family right away, that they put themselves in their shoes. I am in their body suddenly, that when we went to the cemeteries in Israel, to the graveyard, to Auschwitz, to the gas chamber, and I remember when in the gas chamber you can see on the wall the scraping from the people's fingers when they were gassed to death, and how the kids held their hand and crying like they cannot be separated from the reality, and they are. So it was so emotionally for me that I can't describe the minute, what it went through, that because all those kids were never seen in their life such horrors, and suddenly they are in the middle of everything, and it is, your mind can explode from such a moment. That was organized with the March of the Living because my mom is buried in Bitom, and that was a very, very special moment in my life.
Your mom was buried in Bitom.
In Bitom, and since...
But she didn't go to Auschwitz.
No.
How did she get from where you were in Hungary?
No, my mom died after the war.
Mom died after the war.
Before, yes, she died after the war.
Right after the war.
Yeah, within a short time.
Now, in this picture, is this you and your mother?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is you and your mother.
This one is in Bitom, where we lived.
Got
and
it.
She was still alive, and in 1947 my mom died. Since the March of the Living trip went to Auschwitz, and it is the city Bitom, and Auschwitz is very close, so it was a great honor, and I was...
Only when she went with the group, they were...
You took a group of students.
The whole group from United States, from
the March of the Living.
From the March of the Living in the western part of the region, that we went to the cemetery where my mom is buried, and that the whole group had an opportunity to say Kaddish there, and also had a little history of the people who were buried in Bitom.
Oh my gosh.
I can send you some pictures from the cemetery.
And all three occasions.
And the last time, the third occasion, you had your grandson with you.
Oh, and then that's
Ryan.
right. The third trip.
The last trip.
We figured that it would be nice if he could come. We are very close with my daughter's kids, Ryan and Rachel.
This is Rachel.
Right.
And Ryan went for the trip, and it was I can't even tell you. I was watching the kids' face, how it changed, and how they were crying, sobbing actually.
Of course.
All those kids were very well prepared for the trip with different segments of the
She's incredible.
Incredible, and what it became like you are one body. That's how the kids were, and it was really, even for our own Jewish kids, it was something that what they were also saying, it changed my life. That's what you could hear. It changed my life, and that I experienced in schools, in non-Jewish schools. you know, that they are saying this, and what we are really, I shouldn't use the word happy, but how important it is that they are eager to learn, and the teachers are willing to put in time and teach the Holocaust.
You're willing to do the mitzvah, the good deed.
Exactly.
No matter what it takes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing, the teacher goes through an emotional process when they hear it, and they are so thankful for us to come, you know, and give them the time and talk about such terrible horrors, you know, what it should never happen to a human beings, you
Sure.
know, that they are so many evil people, like the Germans were. Unbelievable. They had no soul.
Do you trust Germans now?
The what?
Do you trust Germans now?
I'm asked the question from a lot of people, can you forgive?
No, but that's a question.
No, I don't know. Can you forgive? I mean, the trust. We do see, like, is it the right word, remorse, that they feel sorry that, you know, that their country did this, you know, to other people, human beings. But to forgive, that is a completely different, you know. I don't know, how can you, a murderer, a killer, you know, forgive? When we were in Auschwitz and we passed by Mengeles research building where he was doing, and his wife was a sadistic person, because they took off the skin of a human being and have it on the wall all over, you know. And that was her pleasure to do it, you know.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, and it's very...
This was your star, correct?
Yes.
And Mike, do you have yours? Nope. Of all the stars I've seen, this one is so interesting. You only had one star, right?
Yeah, one star.
And
it had to be sewed down on a jacket.
And you always wore that jacket?
Yes.
Yeah. My mom said the same thing. Manya, I'm going to hand something to you, and I want you to hold this a second. I want you to put that is your grandfather?
Yes. This is a...
Tell me about this photograph.
This photograph is a priceless piece for me, because this picture was, when it was taken, we lived in Poland before the war broke out, and I had relatives in the United States. My mom's brother was here, and he lived in this country for many years. He came somewhere in the...
903. No.
In
1903.
in somewhere in 1900.
1903. Wow.
And that when it was taken. And when I arrived, we had nothing left in our house.
But this was taken in 1938.
Yes, but they left.
Yeah, okay.
And we had nothing in our house left. Everything was taken, broken. And when I came here to United States and they showed me this picture, I would never seen my sisters again, my grandfather, my cousin, and the rest of him. He was murdered. He was taken away to the camp. My grandfather was shot on the same day on Yom Kippur, when they made us march out to the center of the city, and my sister died also right after
And your
the
younger
wars.
sister?
This is me.
This is you, but
This
the
is
one
me.
down below,
Yeah.
this girl.
She is the oldest. This is the middle, and I am the youngest. It's about 3 years.
So you
4
had
years
two
difference.
sisters,
Two sisters.
and
yes.
they both have passed.
Yes.
Yeah.
She passed. This sister passed in the ghetto where we don't even know where. They buried her. Nothing.
Right.
And my sister died in Busk, and
Right.
over there too. They changed the city. They from cemeteries they made roads, and so.
Wow. They're beautiful pictures. You didn't take a boat, you didn't take a ship, you took a plane. What was it like when you first saw the United States after getting off the plane?
When I got off of the plane, it was the best feeling when I put down my foot on the ground and bent down and kissed the ground, and I said, God bless America, God bless America, that finally we made it to the dream of my life.
I want to ask you something, not to change the subject. Do you have nightmares where you'll be sleeping, or is there anything that triggers your distant past, Manya?
Yeah, dreams, I don't know. It can be any normal day, not even
We don't know
thinking
what
of the war or anything, but you go to sleep, you fall asleep, and here you are hiding in the ghetto, shooting and seeing all the horrible things, and it is terrible, to wake up. Even when I wake up, I still sort of shake my head. No, that, it.
But what triggers it, we have no
yes.
idea.
Why, or a lot dreams.
Do you feel that the next generations, the people that are younger than you, we call them second generation, but I have a hard time with that word because we were never in a Holocaust.
Yeah.
But as a child of a survivor and the groups, what do you think is still needed for the survivors? What things do you think are necessary that we can provide, and what do we prove, how do we prove to you that we will continue the legacy?
What it is wonderful, we need the legacy, because when we are going, then the generation of the Holocaust survivors' kids, they will take the legacy and make sure, that such a thing will never happen. So they will observe the day, they will observe anything related, when we were freed from the Nazis, when we were free from other, depends where you lived in Europe, those places. So it is very, very important, to have that. And a lot of times, the question comes up is can you tell us really what happened? Our role is in life now, who are survivors, to really to let the world know that such horrible atrocities will never happen. You cannot forget, you cannot allow that this can happen, although unfortunately there are plenty of, in Yiddish, tzores going on the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
But we are strong, and that's what it kept us alive, our strength, our willingness, our to achieve something.
Do you think that we're doing the right thing? What are we the people that are to continue the legacy, what do we still need to do? Let me rephrase that. Manya, what can we do as the next generation of educators? What do we need to include when we talk about the Holocaust?
Okay, to preserve the Holocaust and the education, number one, you have to educate the people that those things cannot happen because your color of your skin or your religion. That should not be an issue. We are all equally, and we deserve the same respect no matter what you practice, what you do. So, and what I have to bring up something, when I arrived to United States, it was in Buffalo, New York, and that lady invited a group of refugees for Friday night Shabbat dinner, and we are sitting and talking, and this lady, you know, asked questions, and I told her a little bit about my life, and I will never forget that. And she said, "My dear Manya, where did you read this, in what book?" That how the word Holocaust, or people did not talk about it like it would not happen. She thought that how little people knew about this, because it wasn't too long when it happened, and it was, you know, sort of shocking, you know, that people were afraid to talk about the Holocaust. I am thinking back, you know, even of my dad, you know, we didn't talk much about the Holocaust. Not at all, not that he wanted to hide or anything. It was not, maybe he didn't talk to me because I lost my sisters, I lost the most of my family member, and only my dad was, and my aunt. So maybe they were protecting me from everything. Like I was a very good basketball player when I was in Hungary, and I played in a team, first class team, and they did not allow me to be involved in sport, because God forbid I will catch a cold and then I'm coughing, and that, you know, that I shouldn't die, because that's how they were protecting me, you know, and sport was my life, and he was my boyfriend, and I had to say a white lie, I'm going to the movie, and when I had a game, you know, playing basketball, or I went, I was on the team, we won the Hungarian national high school team in handball, and I was a player on that team, and I got hurt during the game, and I only told one of my aunt, because I knew if I tell my father, finita, I will not be able to attend to playing for such a big event, you know, right. National team, and so I had to go to the hospital because my foot was, and now I'm coming home now. My dad asked, "No, wie soll das gewesen? How was it?" And that's what I said. That I went down from the streetcar, and you know, and I wiggled my leg, and that's what I am. You know, I didn't dare to tell him that I got hurt.
And how many years have you been talking in the schools, Manya?
Since you know, we for a long time, because although on the beginning when we came to San Diego, we found the New Life Club, but at that time, not even in the New Life Club, it was...
I would say the last 7-8 years.
And people were not talking about
They
Holocaust, nor any Jewish group, you know, like the Federation or the Hayes or whatever, you know. So it was in infancy that time. So when I told her, her reaction toward me was, my dear, I remember exactly the word, my dear Manya, you must to read this somewhere in a book.
This must have come from a book.
From a book.
Yeah.
And I said, no, Mrs. Sherman, that's what I went through, you know.
Wow.
But I would say, and so when we came to San Diego, that's when the Shoah Foundation, I think through the New Life Club, we made the contact and they interviewed us.
Oh, we were interviewed a long time ago.
95, but from 95 till maybe another 10, 15 years, we didn't talk to anybody about it.
Amazing.
Because nobody was talking, I think.
And the other people, we are the youngest one.
Yes.
Vera is probably
Vera,
probably Vera is
Vera, she is the same,
36.
36. We are maybe a couple months. So here in the youngest people, and the other ones don't want to talk. You know, they are, whenever they need somewhere a speaker, they call Manya. It's
I
funny,
know.
no matter how heavy it is, and you break down, but I can't say no.
But yet
So,
I don't
and
know
then
if
on
it's
the
really
other
good
hand,
for your health.
That's
the
right. So
problem.
it's very
Because,
difficult.
She has high
and
blood pressure.
Well, you know, I'm holding a letter, Miklos and Manya, from a woman by the name of Maya. Dear Miklos and Manya, thank you for sharing your stories so bravely. So bravely. Your stories further educated us in ways so great. We now know we are the future and we must not let history repeat itself. We will carry the stories and educate others for you. Thank you for your bravery and kindness toward us. I wish you well. Live on to tell your stories. Show others what they need to do to help. Love, Maya. An amazing letter, and I'm sure you have hundreds of these.
Hundreds of those.
Hundreds of
Yes,
these.
Very similar.
It has been incredible talking to you and getting to know you. And for others who are going to be watching, this is a great episode for people in our schools to be able to see what it is we're doing. And with that, I say thanks for watching. Our lives are future.
Schlucklasner in die Tatzen, wer wird Tatzen mich schatzen? Oi, oi, Gott ist größer, hat doch gewünscht mein Häuser, die wir sind gegeben, Häuser, wir sind ausgegeben, die wir sind ausgegeben.